We have harvested the 120 sugar snap pea plants that we had growing right here, and now it's time to put in the pole beans. I will be planting two different kinds of pole beans, one heirloom and one hybrid, and comparing the difference between the two, and you'll be able to see the progress during the growing season. Before I can plant in this bed here, I need to make sure that the ground is prepared. So I'm going to remove all 120 of these baler twines. I'll remove the wire down here that the baler twine is attached to, and unscrew the automatic watering system, get that out of the way. I'm going to add my pre-plant and weekly feed and till that into the soil, so the soil is ready for me to plant the seeds. The reason why we use overhand slip knots on these baler twine when we grow vertically is so that we can quickly and easily take them off when it's time for the next crop. Because I'm going to be planting the same number of bean plants as I planted sugar snap peas, 120 plants, I went ahead and just tied up the baler twine to get it out of the way, and so I don't have to retie it at the top, which will save myself some time when I put down the baler twine for the new bean plants. I've removed the automatic watering system piping. Just wanted to show you that I usually leave about 6 inches or so of extra line on the end of my bottom wire here, on which I tie my baler twine, so that I can easily undo it and reattach it as I put in new plants. This is a very inexpensive wire you can get. I'll have a link down below where you can get 250 feet of this for about $4.50. I'm going to need to add 1 ounce of Mittleider pre-plant fertilizer and half an ounce of Mittleider weekly feed per linear foot in my grow box. I keep those two items pre-mixed in 5-gallon buckets so they're easy to get to and I can apply them quickly. I've got my scale zeroed out, and now I'll measure out 20 ounces of pre-plant fertilizer. I've got my 20 ounces here, and I'm ready to apply it to the garden. I get down very low to the garden so that the wind doesn't blow this away, and I'm only applying it to the area that I'll be planting the plants in. I'm not going to be applying it to the center of this 4-foot box, because that is my breezeway where we let light and air in. So just in the growing area is where I'm going to be applying this. And the reason why we apply this is because calcium is the backbone to a healthy plant and a healthy garden. This is 80 parts calcium, 4 parts magnesium, and 1 part boron. If I'm in an area where it rains more than an average of 20 inches per year, then I add my calcium in the form of lime. If I'm in an area where the average rainfall is 20 inches or less, then I use gypsum, because gypsum has sodium in it and it will not raise the pH. Jacob Mittleider found all over the world that soils were depleted of nutrients, and this is a quick and easy way to make sure that your plants get the proper balance of calcium, magnesium, and boron. I now have my 10 ounces of Mittleider weekly feed, which provides all the essential elements and nutrients that the plants need, with the exception of the 3 that they get from the air. This is a simple mix of 16-16-16 nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium, Epsom salt, which is magnesium, and a very, very important package of 10 micronutrients, completing the nutrition requirements for all plants in the right ratio and the right amount. I now just sprinkle this down on the ground in the same area that I put down the Mittleider pre-plant fertilizer. I have half the amount, so I need to be careful that I don't put down too much to begin with. I want this to end up right at the end of the box or soil bed. Looks like I have a little bit left here at the end, so I was a little bit more conservative than I needed to. I'll just go back and just evenly distribute this throughout the box. I'm now going to take my shovel and in a couple minutes just turn in the nutrients into the soil all the way down to the bottom of the 8-inch box. So when the plants germinate, they'll have great nutrients and everything they need to get growing. Now that I have the nutrients turned into the soil, it's time for me to level out the soil and then water the soil to get ready to plant the seeds. What I'm going to use to do that is my 14-inch garden rake to kind of roughly level it out, and then I'll use this scrap 2x4 to run it across and level it out completely, so when I do fertilize and water for the rest of the season, that those will get evenly distributed among the plants. This is now roughly leveled out with the rake. Now it's time to use the board to give it the final leveling. This looks nicely leveled out now. This is the first season that I have not had to add more sand and sawdust. But up until now, I've used my mix of 2-to-1 ratio of sawdust to sand every time I prepared the soil for the next crop because of the sand and sawdust settling. Here everything looks great. I don't need to add any more. You notice that I have some roots in here. Those are left over from the sugar snap peas. We removed the plants at ground level, but left any small roots in the soil, and that'll decompose quickly and easily and add a little bit of tilth to the soil. As I turned the nutrients into the soil, I noticed that the soil mixture here was pretty dry. So I'm going to give this a nice good wetting here so it's a great environment for the seeds to germinate. Right now it's about 81 degrees outside. It's perfect time and temperature to plant seeds outside. Since it's warm enough, that's what I'm going to do. Otherwise, if it were colder, I would do my seed germination inside the house on a heat pad. I have a video on that. I'll have a link below on how to grow and germinate plants. Now that the soil is nicely watered, I've added my lower tie wire down here for vertical growing, and now I'm going to mark the bed so I can plant my beans. Pole beans, or when you're growing beans vertically, are planted according to the Mittleider gardening planting detail sheet every 2 inches. Here I have a garden marker which I've made. Is very simple. I have instructions and a video on how to make this. It's a 2x2 piece of wood, and on the other end of this wood I started 2 inches in and then measured every 6 inches and put in a dowel. So every 6 inches I have a new dowel, and on the other side every 7 inches I have a dowel. The reason being is that most of the things that we're planting are going to be in multiples or divisions of 6 or 7. For example, the sugar snap peas are every 2 inches. So I'm going to take my marker here, and I'm going to place it in the soil, and I'm going to drag it to leave a mark so I know where to plant the beans. Here you can see where I drug it. So I'm going to plant a bean right here, and then 2 inches in, 2 inches on the mark. A third on the mark. A third on the mark. It's very quick and easy to plant, and very quick and easy to mark the entire garden area with this garden marker. The garden marker is only 8 feet long, and I've got a 20-foot box to mark here. So I'm going to overlap and then use those marks again, and I will continue going down the box for 2 more times. I now have the entire garden area marked. It took me less than 30 seconds to do that. Now that I have the entire garden already prepared, I bring out my beans out of the nice cold storage that we keep them in. We like to keep our seeds in the freezer or the refrigerator to keep them cold. The colder you keep them, the longer they will last. I've got 2 varieties here I'm going to be planting. One is a Berkey variety called Kentucky Wonder, and the other one, which I'm really excited to plant, is the Blue Lake pole bean from the can of Heirloom garden seeds that I purchased at mittleidergardening.com. This package of Heirloom gardening seeds is by far the best value I've seen in any seed offering anywhere. It has 23 different varieties of seeds that will plant over 1.5 acres of food. I will have a link below this video to that very important can of seeds. I believe it's just as important to have seeds as it is to have a 1-year supply of food. If you have seeds, then you have perpetual food, especially if you're storing heirloom seeds. The 2 things that really impressed me when I opened up my can of seeds is that there was a package inside giving you detailed instructions on how to harvest the seeds for the next year's crop for every different variety of plants inside of that can of seeds. The second thing is that these are triple sealed bags, so I can take out the pole beans that I want here, seal this back up, put it back in the can and back in the freezer, and keep them nice and cold for up to 20 years. We know that we're supposed to plant these every 2 inches apart, but how deep do you plant seeds? The rule of thumb is you plant seeds 2.5 times the thickness of the seed deep. Not the length, not the width, but the thickness of the seed. I'll take my seed, put it on the first mark, about down to my knuckle, The next seed about a third of the way in, about down to my knuckle. The next seed about a third of the way in. The next seed on the line, and so forth, until I have all my seeds planted. I can tell already this is going to be a fun exercise comparing these two different kinds of variety of pole beans. But what I'm impressed here is I just opened up this package and look at all the bean seeds inside of this package. There are a lot of seeds in these packages. This is a great value for garden seeds. Make sure that you have them in your preparedness stores. As you can see, I've got my beans planted. They're every 2 inches. You can see I've got them just to the back side of the wire. Here's the front of the box. Here's my wire, and I'm putting them just to the back side of the wire. When we grow vertically, we grow in one row, and we grow them very close together. The reason why I want them to the back side of the wire, because this gives me all this room in here to water, to fertilize, to weed, to work in the garden without disturbing the plants and the plants being in my way. Now that I have all the seeds planted, I stop what I'm doing, and I'm going to take these seeds that I haven't planted, put them back in the can, and put them back in the freezer. What destroys seed germination ratios is humidity and warmth. So I waited until the garden was ready for me to plant the seeds. I brought the seeds out, planted them, and now I'm going to take them right back and get them nice and cold. Not all seeds can be put in the freezer, but all the seeds that come in the garden can of seeds can be and should be in the freezer, so they'll be able to last for 20 years. Something that was really important to me as a prepper is that I needed to find a gardening method that was sustainable. To me, that means the same thing as having a year's supply of food, and that is that I can have it all on hand if the trucks stop delivering today. And so with the Mittleider gardening method, I can have all the nutrients, all the sand, all the sawdust, everything I need to feed myself and my family, and I've chosen to do it for 5 years. One of those things is the sand. And so yes, we have containers of coarse concrete sand stored in our garden area, and also sawdust. That way we can replenish the soil and keep on growing. By the way, when I'm looking for sand, it's usually the cheapest sand I can find, and it's called concrete sand, sometimes sharp sand or torpedo sand, or it looks a lot like beach sand. What I'm looking for is little tiny pebbles in the sand, and that lets me know I have the right coarseness. The sand allows for airspace, and so I don't want to use fine sand. So this sand is perfect, and it was very inexpensive. And of course, easy to store. Now regardless of what I'm growing in, whether it's sand and sawdust, peat moss and perlite, 100% shredded pine needles, or whatever it is, or regular garden soil, I do not want to cover my seeds with soil. I'm going to use sand. Now that I have my seeds down to the appropriate depth, I'm just going to come across here with some sand and sprinkle across the seeds. That way the seeds will be able to easily come up through the sand, but won't be disturbed when I'm watering. Now that I have the seeds covered with sand, I'm going to wet everything down and help those seeds start germinating. If I were planting something like carrots, I would have covered them with sand also, but because they're so small and can be turned when I'm watering, I would cover them with either cheesecloth or burlap. But since bean seeds and sugar snap pea seeds and seeds like that are pretty large, I don't need to worry about covering with burlap or cheesecloth. A few seconds of watering right down the line and I'm all done. And now I put back the automatic watering system, which I absolutely love. I have a video, I'll have a link down below this, but as you can see, this is made out of PVC. It's hard, it lasts. We've had it last for 20 years, 365 days out in the sun and the ice and the rain and the snow. They're very inexpensive to make. It's above the ground, so it's out of the way for weeding, for fertilizing. It doesn't suck up any dirt inside of it when you turn off. It's just a great, great way to water. And it's below the leaves, so we're not getting the leaves wet when we water. So I can go ahead and let this water the seedlings every day, or I can come out here with a watering wand and water it by hand. You notice I planted the seeds on the outside of this wire right here. This is a 6-inch piece of 2x4. This is a 1x2 stake. So those seeds are planted about 4 inches away from the watering line. And when I fertilize, whether it's nitrogen, weekly feed, or pre-plant fertilizer, once I have the seeds in here, I'm going to fertilize right below this pipe here, and that'll keep the nutrients about 4 inches away from the plants when I fertilize, and then I just water it in with the watering wand or the automatic watering system. That's it. I'm done. Pretty quick and easy, and I'm excited to be able to have all these great beans growing, be able to eat them fresh in salads, cook them up, can them, dehydrate them, collect the seeds for the next season, and share them with friends and neighbors. This is LDS Prepper reminding you, if ye are prepared, ye shall not fear. And having the skill, the experience, the knowledge, and the things on hand to be able to grow food for your own family removes the fear, because you will be prepared. Aren't you glad you held on to the end of the video? Because you get to see the update and whether this method worked or not. I planted 120 beans. I had 117 germinate. So I had a 97.5% germination rate, growing in sand and sawdust and topping with sand. Getting high germination rates is very easy if you follow the Mittleider gardening method's rules. Plant the seeds 2.5 times the thickness of the seed deep and cover with sand. Make sure you keep the soil moist, and you will have great germination, which will substantially increase the productivity of your garden.